Hello, everyone. Welcome back to End Times Ambience. If you want to skip this brief director's introduction, check the comments below for the timestamp to get straight into the show. Before we get started, a few housekeeping things. If you're not aware, End Times Ambience was recently demonetized by YouTube. And in order to keep the signal going, we have moved our primary source of new broadcasts over to Patreon. So over on Patreon, you will find several exclusive videos, which include videos inspired by Half-Life, Return of the Living Dead, the Crippen virus from I Am Legend, Resident Evil Code Veronica, John Carpenter's The Fog, The Evil Dead, and released this week, World War Z. So for as little as $5 a month, you can get access to those and no long-term commitments. You can cancel anytime you sign up. So this particular video is a very highly requested video and was actually the winner of my Patreon fan poll back in April and has been out on Patreon for almost 2 months now. I'm glad to finally bring it over here to YouTube, and it's based off a kaiju event. So if you're not familiar with what a kaiju is, it's Japanese for strange beasts, and it's basically giant monsters that are too big for humanity to stop. So think Godzilla. I'm pretty sure that's the one that started it all. So this is an original story. I thought about doing a Godzilla version of this, but I figured it might be best to save that for November when -0 comes out. So this story starts off on the west coast of the United States, where the Meridian Energy Corporation is drilling too deep into the ocean floor, and they find something that was never supposed to wake up. So these broadcasts are from the days that followed, as ancient titans fight for the dominance of the Earth with no regard for anything in their path. End Times Ambience presents The Emergence, the Kaiju event. Hope you enjoy the show.
Good evening. Before we begin, a brief word about the proceedings. The voices you're about to hear were manufactured by clever machines, but I assure you the story itself was crafted by a human being with a soul, however questionable that soul may be. One must credit the right party for these particular nightmares. As for the events themselves, should any of the unfortunate individuals you'll be hearing from bear an uncanny resemblance to someone you know, living or deceased, I'm afraid that's entirely coincidental, though one does wonder about the odds. Now then, I do hope you've brought something warm to drink, perhaps a brandy, or whatever modest comfort one keeps near the radio when the news has taken that peculiar turn one always dreads, yet somehow never quite expects. You see, something rather inconvenient has begun stirring beneath the waters of your charming coastal communities. Something old, something patient, something that's been sleeping in the deep places of the earth for terribly long, and now finds itself rudely awakened by the enthusiastic drilling of what I'm told are very reputable energy corporations. One does hate to spoil the surprise, but I suspect you'll be hearing quite a lot about it over the coming days. The authorities will have their explanations, the experts will have their theories, and the creatures, well, they'll have their own agenda entirely. So settle in. Perhaps check that your doors are locked, though I suspect that won't help. And do try to remember, the ocean covers 70% of this planet. We really don't know what's down there at all. Enjoy the show.
Good morning, and welcome to your Tuesday edition of Coastal Morning News. I'm Mark Russell. It's 6 a.m., and we've got a busy broadcast ahead, traffic, weather, and a developing situation offshore that's drawn quite a crowd. Let's start with what's on your commute. Northbound 405 is moving well this morning. No major slowdowns until you hit the merge near Harbor Boulevard. Southbound 101 has construction between exits 12 and 14, so expect about a 15-minute delay through that corridor. Otherwise, it's looking like a smooth ride for most of you heading into the city. Weather-wise, we're looking at partly cloudy skies through the morning, clearing by early afternoon. High of 72 degrees along the coast, mid-70s inland. Light onshore winds Nothing too exciting. Perfect beach weather if you've got the day off. Now, speaking of the coast, we're going live to Mason Weaver, who's been out at Point Coronado since before dawn. Mason, I understand there's quite a scene developing around that offshore drilling platform.
Morning, Mark. I'm standing on the pier at Point Coronado, and behind me you can see about 60, maybe 70 protesters gathered along the waterfront. They've been here since last night, and they're not happy about what's happening about 4 miles offshore. That's the Meridian Deep platform out there. You can just barely see the lights on the horizon. Meridian Energy started exploratory drilling operations about 2 weeks ago, tapping into what they're calling a previously uncharted geological formation about 3,000 feet below the seafloor. Environmental groups have been pushing back hard, claiming the company didn't do adequate impact assessments before breaking ground.
Mason, we've also been hearing some unusual reports about seismic activity in that area. What can you tell us about that?
Right. So that's the other thing people are talking about. USGS recorded a series of small seismic events late last night, centered about 12 miles offshore, magnitudes ranging from 2.1 to 2.8. Nothing big enough to feel on shore, but local fishermen I've talked to say they noticed something strange. One guy runs charter boats out of the marina. He told me the fish have been acting weird for days, whole schools moving toward deeper water. Said he's never seen anything quite like it in 30 years working these waters. Probably nothing, but it's got people out here spooked.
Any official response from Meridian Energy or the authorities?
Meridian put out a statement late last night. They're saying the seismic readings are unrelated to their operations. The Coast Guard sent a cutter out this morning as a precautionary measure, but they're treating it as routine. Nothing to worry about, according to official channels.
All right. Mason, keep an eye on that situation for us. We'll check back with you later in the broadcast.
Will do, Mark. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Mason. In other news this morning, the City Council is expected to vote later today on the proposed downtown revitalization project. We'll have full coverage of that decision at noon. And a reminder, if you're planning to head to the beach today, lifeguard stations open at 8 a.m. It's shaping up to be a beautiful day out there. Coming up after the break, we'll look at the latest on interstate road construction, and our meteorologist has your extended forecast. Stay with us. We're interrupting regular programming with breaking news. I'm Mark Russell, and we're getting reports of an unusual situation developing along the northern coastline. What appears to be a mass beaching of marine life is currently underway at Crescent Beach, roughly 12 miles north of the Meridian Deep drilling platform we reported on yesterday. We're going live now to our correspondent Mason Weaver, who's on the scene. Mason, what can you tell us?
Mark, I've never seen anything like what's happening behind me. We're at Crescent Beach, and the sand is covered with these, I don't know what else to call them, these creatures, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They look like some kind of crustacean, about the size of a large dog, dark reddish-brown coloring, heavily armored shells, multiple legs. Beach Patrol closed the area about an hour ago, but you can see the crowds gathering along the perimeter. Everyone's got their phones out.
Mason, any indication of what species these might be? Are local wildlife authorities on scene?
Fish and Wildlife got here about 30 minutes ago, and I watched their faces when they saw the beach. These aren't locals, if you know what I mean. One biologist I spoke with off the record said he couldn't identify the species at all. Never seen anything like them in any database. They're treating it as some kind of deep water displacement event, possibly related to those seismic readings we reported yesterday. The creatures aren't moving. They're just lying there in the sand. Some people thought they were dead, but you can see the shells rising and falling, like they're breathing, but slowly.
We have Dr. Houston Brooks standing by in the studio. Dr. Brooks is a xenobiologist with the Monarch Research Division. Doctor, what are we looking at here?
Thank you, Mark. Based on what I'm seeing from Mason's footage, these organisms appear to be bathypelagic in origin. That means deep ocean. We're talking about fauna that normally exists at depths of 3,000 feet or more. The fact that they've surfaced at all is, frankly, extraordinary. The pressure differential alone should be lethal. These creatures evolved in an environment so hostile to surface life that we've barely explored it. For them to reach shallow water in this condition, something significant must have forced them up.
Could this be connected to the drilling operations offshore?
I wouldn't want to speculate on causation, but the timing is certainly notable. Meridian Deep was tapping into a formation they described as previously uncharted. If drilling disturbed a sealed geological pocket, a thermal vent system, or some other subterranean habitat that could theoretically displace whatever was living down there. What concerns me, and again I'm theorizing, is the apparent torpor these organisms are displaying. They're not dead, they're dormant. In deep-sea biology, dormancy is often a survival mechanism triggered by rapid environmental change. They may be adapting.
Mason, are authorities allowing anyone near the creatures?
They've set up a perimeter about 50 yards back. National Guard just arrived, which is, that's unusual for a wildlife incident. They're telling everyone this is purely precautionary. Wait, something's happening. Mark, the creatures, some of them are starting to move.
Mason, can you describe what you're seeing?
They're uncurling. The ones closest to the crowd, they're lifting themselves up on their legs. People are starting to back away. The soldiers are shouting something. Mark, these things they're turning toward the sound. They're not dead. They weren't dormant. They were waiting.
Mason, get to safety. We're going to stay with this story. Dr. Brooks, are you still with us?
I'm here. Mark, if these organisms are exhibiting pack behavior, if they're responding to stimuli in a coordinated way, then this isn't a beaching event. This is an emergence.
We're continuing to monitor this developing situation at Crescent Beach. Authorities are urging residents to stay away from the coastal area until further notice. We'll bring you updates as they become available. This is Mark Russell. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Deep Dive. I'm Carl Denham, and if you haven't been following the news out of the coastal region over the last 24 hours, you might want to sit down for this one. We're talking about the Crescent Beach incident, the mass beaching of unidentified organisms, and what the mainstream coverage isn't telling you. My guest today is Steve Martin, investigative journalist, former bureau chief for the Associated Press, and someone who's been digging into the Meridian Deep story for months before any of this happened. Steve, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Carl. I wish it was under better circumstances.
So let's start with the basics. You've been looking into Meridian Energy's deep-sea drilling operations since before they even broke ground out there. What drew your attention?
The permits. Always follow the paperwork, Carl. Meridian filed for exploratory drilling rights about 18 months ago, and the environmental impact assessment was I don't know how to put this diplomatically. It was thin, suspiciously thin for a formation they were describing as previously uncharted. The depth they were targeting, 3,000 feet below the seafloor, that's not unusual for offshore extraction. But the geological surveys attached to their filing were, let's say, incomplete. Large sections were redacted, and when I filed Freedom of Information requests to see the full reports, I got stonewalled for 6 months.
Okay, but companies redact proprietary information all the time, right? Competitive advantage and all that.
Sure, but the redactions weren't protecting business secrets. They were hiding anomalous readings. I got a copy of the original survey from a contact inside the contractor who did the initial sonar mapping. The formation Meridian was drilling into wasn't just uncharted. It was sealed.
Sealed? What does that mean exactly?
The sonar showed a cavity about 400 feet across, surrounded by a layer of sediment that hadn't been disturbed in, according to the dating in the report, millions of years, and the interior readings were strange. The acoustic return pattern suggested the cavity wasn't empty. It was warm, warmer than the surrounding rock by almost 40 degrees.
And Meridian drilled into it anyway.
They did. The official position is that they were tapping a geothermal pocket, potential energy reserve, but I've talked to geologists who looked at those readings, and they said no natural thermal vent produces that kind of localized heat signature. It was too regular, too contained.
So what are you saying? That Meridian knew something was down there?
I'm saying they didn't ask the right questions. Or maybe they did ask, and they didn't like the answers, so they went ahead anyway. Either way, when they punched through that sediment layer 2 weeks ago, they cracked open something that had been closed for a very long time.
All right, let's talk about what came out. These creatures at Crescent Beach. You've seen the footage like everyone else. What's your read?
I've been making calls all morning, Carl. Marine biologists, paleontologists, people who study deep-sea ecosystems. Nobody can identify these things. The closest comparison anyone's given me is prehistoric arthropods, species that went extinct 300 million years ago. But that's not the troubling part.
Okay, I'll bite. What's the troubling part?
I talked to a source this morning, someone connected to the initial response team. They examined 3 of the creatures before the military cordoned off the area. These creatures have specialized mouthparts, not for feeding on fish or kelp or anything you'd expect from marine life. The structure is more like something designed to attach and burrow. Parasitic morphology, my source called it.
Parasitic? As in, they feed off a host?
That's exactly what I'm saying. These things aren't independent organisms. They're hitchhikers, scaled-up parasites designed to live on something else. Something much, much larger.
Wait, hold on. You're suggesting these dog-sized creatures are, what? Like ticks? Fleas? Off of something bigger?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what a qualified biologist told me after examining them firsthand. The anatomy doesn't make sense for a free-living organism. The way they're built, the clamped structures on their legs, the hook-like mandibles, they evolved to cling to something, to feed off something. And Carl, think about the scale here.
I'm thinking about it. I don't like where it's going.
A normal tick is, what, a few millimeters, and it lives on mammals that weigh 50, 100 pounds. These creatures are the size of dogs. If the ratio holds, if the biology follows any kind of logical scaling, then the host organism would have to be, I don't know, hundreds of feet long, maybe more.
Steve, that's insane. You're talking about something the size of a building, living underground, under the ocean floor?
I'm talking about what the evidence suggests. That cavity Meridian drilled into, 400 feet across, warm, sealed for millions of years, and now thousands of parasites have surfaced 12 miles from the drilling site. You tell me what else fits.
Is there any indication that whatever this host might be, that it's still down there?
I don't know. Nobody knows. But I'll tell you this. The seismic readings haven't stopped since Meridian broke through. They've been getting stronger, and the epicenter has been moving, slowly. but definitely moving toward the coastline.
Steve, where does this leave us? What should people be doing right now?
Paying attention, not trusting the official story. When a company with that much money involved says there's nothing to worry about, that's exactly when you should start worrying. I've been doing this a long time, Carl, and the feeling I've got right now, this is the tip of something, and we haven't seen what's underneath.
Steve Martin, investigative journalist. Thank you for coming on. Folks, we're going to keep following this story. If you've got information, if you work for Meridian, if you were on that beach, reach out. The tip line is in the show notes. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your head down. I'm Carl Denham. This has been Deep Dive.
This is Mark Russell with continuing coverage of the coastal emergency. It is now 2 p.m. on Thursday afternoon, roughly 24 hours since the creatures from Crescent Beach began moving inland. The situation has escalated dramatically since our last update. For those just joining us, the swarm of unidentified organisms has advanced approximately 4 miles from the beachhead. National Guard units engaged the creatures early this morning near the Route 17 interchange, and we're now getting reports of significant casualties. Not among the creatures. We go now to Jack Driscoll, who's at the forward medical staging area. Jack, can you hear me?
Mark, I can hear you. I'm about half a mile back from the engagement zone at a triage station the Army Corps set up in a school parking lot. What I'm seeing here is, it's overwhelming. The military hit the swarm with everything they had this morning. Artillery, 50 caliber mounted guns, air support, and by all accounts, the weapons worked. These creatures, whatever they are, they can be killed by conventional fire. Soldiers I've talked to said the shells tore through them like paper.
If the weapons were effective, what's causing the casualties?
The blood, Mark. When these things die, when they're breached, something happens. Their blood, or whatever fluid is inside them, it starts smoking. Not like burning, like it's reacting with the air. First responders who got close to the carcasses started collapsing within minutes. Skin irritation, difficulty breathing, and then worse. They're calling it toxic shock, but I've never seen toxic shock look like this. People are arriving here with burns on their hands and faces just from being downwind.
We have Dr. San Lin standing by, Chief of Emergency Toxicology at Regional Medical Center. Doctor, can you explain what we're dealing with here?
Thank you, Mark. What we're observing appears to be a severe hemolytic reaction. The circulatory fluid inside these organisms is chemically incompatible with our atmosphere. When exposed to open air, it undergoes rapid oxidation, releasing volatile compounds that are highly corrosive to human tissue. In simple terms, the blood of these creatures is essentially toxic to everything on the surface. We're seeing chemical burns, respiratory distress, and in severe cases, acute organ failure in patients who were exposed for more than a few minutes.
How is this possible? How can a living organism have blood that's poisonous to its environment?
Because this isn't their environment. These organisms evolved somewhere else, somewhere with a completely different atmospheric composition. The preliminary analysis suggests their blood is ammonia-based rather than iron-based like ours. Down in the deep ocean, in the right pressure and temperature conditions, that chemistry works. But up here, at sea level, with our oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, their internal chemistry becomes violently reactive. We're calling it Kaiju blue for the distinctive coloring of the fluid. And I cannot stress this enough. People need to stay away from any area where these creatures have been killed.
Jack, what's the military doing with this information?
They've pulled back, Mark. They had to. Every artillery strike, every dead creature, it's creating these toxic zones that spread for hundreds of yards. The wind shifted about an hour ago, and suddenly 3 city blocks are uninhabitable. I'm watching crews in hazmat gear trying to contain the spillage, but there's too much. The blue fluid is running into storm drains, soaking into the ground. They're talking about evacuating the entire watershed area because of contamination risk.
Dr. San Lin, what happens if this gets into the water supply?
We're treating patients who came into contact with contaminated puddles, Mark. Just puddles. The dermal absorption rate is extraordinarily high. If this compound reaches a municipal water source in any significant concentration, we would be looking at casualties on a scale I don't want to speculate about.
So we can kill these creatures, but killing them poisons the land.
That's correct. Our conventional response is creating a secondary disaster. The military is going to have to find another way to deal with these creatures, or accept that every victory comes with a cost we may not be able to afford.
Mark, one more thing. The creatures are still coming. The swarm they engaged this morning was just the leading edge. Spotters are saying there's more moving up from the beach, hundreds more, and they're heading toward the residential areas. Whatever this is, it's not over.
We're urging all residents within a 10-mile radius of the coastal zone to evacuate immediately. Follow designated evacuation routes and avoid any contact with dead creatures or blue-colored fluid. This is a developing emergency. Stay with us.
All right, folks, let me catch my breath here, because what I'm about to tell you is going to blow the lid off everything you think you know about what's happening on that coastline. Everyone comfortable? Good, because you're not going to be comfortable for long. They want you to believe in monsters. They want you glued to your screen watching footage of these supposed creatures crawling out of the ocean, and they're counting on you being too scared to ask the obvious question, the question nobody in the mainstream is asking. Where did the chemical weapons come from? Because that's what this is, folks. That's what the so-called Kaiju Blue actually is. A chemical agent dispersed over populated areas by our own military. And they've given it a cute little monster name so you don't realize you're watching a live fire test of banned weapons on American soil. Think about what they're telling you. They're saying these creatures have blood that melts concrete, blood that poisons aquifers, blood that can make a healthy person's lungs give out in under 3 minutes. Does that sound like biology to you? Or does that sound like something cooked up in a lab in Fort Detrick? I've been tracking chemical weapons development for 15 years, and I'm telling you right now, the symptom profile they're describing, the rapid onset respiratory failure, the dermal absorption, the corrosive effect on infrastructure that matches known nerve agent variants that were supposedly destroyed in the 90s. Supposedly. And isn't it convenient? Isn't it just remarkably convenient that this all started right after Meridian Energy punched a hole in the ocean floor, a company with 3 former Pentagon officials on its board, a company that received emergency liability waivers from the Department of Defense 2 weeks before they started drilling? That's in the public record, folks. I didn't make that up. Now, are there creatures? Sure, there's something crawling around out there. I'm not saying otherwise, but ask yourself this. How did they know exactly where to aim the artillery? How did the military mobilize a full combat response within hours of the first sighting? That's not a reactive operation. That's a prepared operation. They knew what was coming out of that hole because they put it there. Or they put something in those creatures before they surfaced. Some kind of binary agent that only activates when the organism is killed. That's why they had to shell them in residential areas. That's why the evacuation maps were already printed before anyone knew what was happening. And where is the media? Where are the questions? Every network anchor is reading from the same script. Monster comes out of ocean. Monster has poison blood. Don't ask where the monster came from. Don't ask why the government was ready. Just be scared and do what you're told. I've got callers telling me their tap water is turning blue. Blue, folks. They're saying it's contamination from the creature blood. But contamination doesn't spread upstream. Contamination doesn't appear in sealed municipal systems miles from the engagement zone unless it was introduced deliberately. You want to know what I think is happening? I think this is a trial run. I think they needed to test deployment of a new weapon on a civilian population, and they needed a cover story big enough that nobody would look past it, so they gave us monsters. They gave us a Hollywood disaster movie in real life, and while you're watching the creatures, you're not watching them poison your drinking water. Look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these really are ancient sea monsters with blood that dissolves asphalt. Maybe Meridian Energy just happened to drill into a prehistoric nightmare, and the military just happened to be ready with a full combat response in under 12 hours. Maybe it's all coincidence. But I've been doing this too long to believe in coincidences that convenient. And every instinct I have is screaming that what we're seeing on those screens isn't what's actually happening. They're showing you a monster movie, but behind the scenes, this is a military operation. Stay alert, folks. Filter your water. Keep your masks ready. And don't trust a single thing they tell you about what's coming out of that ocean. Because the real threat isn't crawling up the beach. The real threat is signing the orders. This is Bernie Hayes. You've been listening to The Truth. Share this broadcast before they take it down. And I'll see you tomorrow if they let me.
Good morning. It is Saturday, day 5 of the coastal emergency, and I'm Mark Russell with continuing coverage. We are bringing you breaking news. This footage was captured this morning at 6:45 a.m. by a military reconnaissance drone operating over the Harbor District. We've confirmed with 3 separate sources that this footage is authentic. What it shows is, well, it's unlike anything we've seen in this crisis so far. Over the past 12 hours, the swarm organisms, the ones we've been calling Yoju based on nomenclature coming from scientific advisors, they stopped dispersing. Instead of spreading outward into residential zones, they began converging, moving toward a central point near the harbor where the initial breach occurred. At 6:42 this morning, something rose from the water at that convergence point. Joining us now is Colonel Preston Packard, former Air Cavalry commander and current Pentagon consultant on defense posture. Colonel, you've seen this footage. Can you help us understand what we're looking at?
Mark, I've seen things that don't make the news, but what came out of that harbor this morning, I don't have a tactical framework for it. The entity measures 230 feet from the waterline. That's taller than the Statue of Liberty, for reference. Mass displacement calculations put it somewhere around 18,000 tons. It's not the same species as the swarm creatures. It's larger, denser, and based on what we observed, it's commanding them.
Commanding them. What do you mean by that, Colonel?
When this thing surfaced, it produced a low-frequency sound. We picked it up on seismic monitors all the way in Nevada. The swarm creatures, the ones that had been moving erratically through the suburbs, they stopped, every single one of them. Then they turned toward the harbor, like dogs responding to a whistle. We're classifying this entity as a Hanju. That's the designation for a herd leader in this taxonomic model. The Yoju, those smaller ones, they're not independent predators. They're infantry. They move when this thing tells them to move. They attack what it tells them to attack.
Colonel, I have to ask the obvious question. Can we kill it?
We tried. At 7:12 this morning, coastal artillery batteries opened fire on the creature with everything in range. 155mm howitzers. Naval bombardment from 2 destroyers positioned offshore. We put enough ordnance into that thing to level a city block. It didn't flinch. The dermal plating on this creature is unlike anything in our material science databases. Our shells detonated on impact, but they couldn't penetrate. We scored surface burns, cosmetic damage at best. The entity continued moving inland without altering course.
What about airstrikes? Bunker busters? Something with deeper penetration?
That's being discussed. But here's the problem, Mark. We learned from the Yoju engagement that killing these creatures releases that toxic blood compound. The bigger the creature, the more blood. If we breach this thing's hide in a populated area, the contamination zone could cover half the county. And there's another factor. We observed the Hanju producing additional Yoju from specialized structures on its dorsal region. It's not just leading the swarm. It's generating the swarm. The thing is a walking factory. For every 10 we killed yesterday, it's already spawned 50 more.
Colonel, what you're describing, it sounds like we're losing.
What I'm describing is a tactical impasse. Our conventional weapons are effective against the smaller organisms but create secondary casualties. Our conventional weapons are ineffective against the large organism, and the large organism is producing more of the smaller ones faster than we can neutralize them. The Joint Chiefs are meeting this afternoon to discuss escalation options. That's all I can say on the record.
Escalation. For the viewers at home, can you clarify what escalation means in this context?
It means we're running out of options that don't involve leveling entire grid squares. It means the conversation is shifting from containment to damage mitigation.
Colonel Preston Packard, thank you for your time. Stay safe out there.
Thank you, Mark.
For those just joining us, a massive creature has emerged from the harbor and appears to be directing the movements of the smaller organisms we've been tracking for the past 4 days. Conventional military force has proven ineffective against it. Mandatory evacuation orders remain in effect for all coastal zones. We're expecting an emergency broadcast from federal authorities within the hour. Please stay tuned to this channel. Do not attempt to return to evacuation zones under any circumstances. This situation is ongoing.
This is an official emergency alert from the Federal Emergency Management Agency in coordination with the Department of Homeland Security. This alert supersedes all previous advisories issued for the coastal emergency zone. The following information is mandatory for all residents within the designated impact area. A Level 4 biological hazard event has been declared for the following counties: San Marcos, Coronado, Crescent Bay, Harbor View, and all incorporated municipalities within a 30-mile radius of the Point Coronado drilling site. The hazard classification has been elevated due to the emergence of a large-scale hostile organism. All residents within the designated impact area are ordered to evacuate immediately. This is not a voluntary advisory. Failure to comply with this directive may result in loss of access to emergency services. Evacuation routes are designated as follows: Interstate 15 northbound, State Route 78 eastbound, and County Road 412 southbound, toward the inland staging areas. Citizens are directed to observe the following safety measures during evacuation. Do not approach any deceased organisms. Do not make contact with any blue-colored fluid, residue, or contaminated surface. If exposure occurs, remove all affected clothing and proceed to the nearest decontamination station. Do not consume tap water until municipal systems have been certified by public health authorities. All residential structures within the impact zone are to be sealed prior to departure. Close all windows and exterior doors. Disable HVAC systems to prevent infiltration of airborne contaminants. Do not return to evacuated properties until the all clear has been issued by civil defense authorities. National Guard units have been deployed to enforce evacuation corridors. Citizens are advised that roadblocks are in effect on all non-designated routes. Do not attempt to exit the impact zone via unapproved pathways. All civilian air traffic within a 50-mile radius has been grounded until further notice. This advisory will be updated at 1800 hours or when new information becomes available. Repeat, all residents within the designated impact zone are ordered to evacuate immediately. Do not return to evacuated properties. Do not make contact with any contaminated material. Proceed to inland staging areas via designated evacuation routes. This has been an official emergency alert from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Monitor this frequency for further updates. End of message.
This is a breaking news alert. I'm Mark Russell. It's Monday and the 7th day of this crisis. The Hanju, the large creature that emerged from the harbor 2 days ago, the one Colonel Packard said our weapons couldn't penetrate. It wasn't the main event, the advance team. At approximately 11:45 this morning, seismic monitors detected a massive displacement event 16 miles offshore. Water levels in the harbor dropped by 8 feet in under 2 minutes. And then something came up. We have Dr. Houston Brooks with us, xenobiologist with the Monarch Research Division. Dr. Brooks, you're looking at the same footage we are. How big is this thing?
The entity that made landfall this morning stands 390 feet tall. We're estimating mass at somewhere between 30 and 35,000 tons. To put that in perspective, this creature could step over most commercial buildings without bending. The Hanju we classified on Saturday is now following this new entity at a distance of a quarter mile. It's not just moving in the same direction, it's deferring. We're observing what appears to be alpha subordinate behavior.
Doctor, I have to ask something that sounds insane. How is this biologically possible? How can something that size even exist?
It shouldn't be. Conventional biology says a terrestrial organism at this scale would collapse under its own weight. The bones would shatter. The heart couldn't pump blood to the extremities. And yet, here we are. There's a theoretical model. It's been around for decades in fringe circles, called nuclear fossilization. The idea is that certain organisms from deep geological eras, when exposed to naturally occurring radioactive environments, underwent a fundamental cellular transformation. Instead of normal metabolic processes, these creatures would operate on something closer to internal nuclear fission. They don't eat in the traditional sense. They don't need oxygen the way we do. They're powered by a reactor, not a heart.
Wait, you're telling me this sucker is nuclear?
I'm telling you, it may have been sleeping beneath the earth for millions of years, sustained by radiation we didn't know was there. And when Meridian cracked open that sealed formation, they didn't wake up some ordinary animal. They triggered something that was here before the dinosaurs.
Dr. Brooks, thank you. We're now going live to an emergency address from the President of the United States. President William Stens is speaking from an undisclosed location.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from a very, very secure location. And let me tell you, this is not the kind of situation any president wants to deal with. Nobody does. But here we are. Now, You've all seen the footage. Tremendous footage. By the way, the military cameras are getting incredible shots. Really impressive work by our people. But what you're looking at, and I've had the briefings, the best briefings, this thing is big. Very, very big. Maybe the biggest thing anyone's ever seen. You know, I've watched a lot of movies. Godzilla, King Kong, Cloverfield, which frankly wasn't as good, but that's okay. And I always thought, you know, that's Hollywood. That's special effects. Nobody actually deals with that kind of thing. Well, America, we're dealing with it now. And let me tell you something. This is going to be handled. We have the greatest military in the world. The absolute greatest. And our generals, fantastic people. They're working around the clock on this. Now, I'm signing an executive order tonight declaring martial law in the affected coastal regions. A lot of people don't like that phrase. Martial law sounds scary. But you know what's scarier? A 400-foot monster that eats buildings for breakfast. That's scarier. So we're doing what we have to do. The military is going to have full authority in the designated zones. And I know some people are going to complain. They always do. But this is about saving lives, American lives. And we're going to save them. Believe me. You know, in the movies, they always figure it out at the last minute. Some scientist has a plan, the military gets its act together, and boom, the monster goes down. That's what's going to happen here. We've got great scientists, the best, and they're working on something special. To the people who've lost their homes, their communities, I see you. We're going to rebuild. Better than before. America doesn't quit. We faced tough stuff before. Pearl Harbor, 9/11. This is just, you know, it's a really big animal. We'll figure it out. Stay safe. Follow the evacuation orders. And don't worry. Your president has this under control. Totally under control. God bless you. And God bless America.
That was President William Stenz, speaking from an undisclosed secure location. The key points. Martial law has been declared for all affected coastal regions. Military authority is now in full effect. Residents are ordered to comply with all evacuation directives. The President referenced ongoing scientific efforts to address the crisis. We will bring you updates as they become available. For now, if you are in the designated zones, please leave. This is no longer a request.
Brothers and sisters, I know many of you are frightened tonight. That's not a failure of faith. That's being human. Some of you came here because you didn't know where else to go. And some of you came because this is exactly where you needed to be. Either way, you're here now. And that matters. I want to read something with you tonight. It's from the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verses 1 through 4. Now, I know that book scares some people. I know it's been used to frighten folks for 2,000 years. But tonight I want you to hear something different in these words. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Those are the words of the Apostle John. written 2,000 years ago on the island of Patmos. And I'll be honest with you, when I read those words this week, my hands were shaking. Because yes, there's a terrible beast walking through our cities right now. And yes, our armies can't stop it. But here's what I need you to understand. John wasn't writing that passage to tell you God sent this creature to punish you. He was writing to people who were already living through terror, people who were watching their world tear apart. And he was telling them, you're not the first. You're not alone. And even in the darkest valley, God hasn't left. I don't know why this creature is here. I don't have answers about where it came from or what it wants. The scientists are working on that. What I do know is this: when the world gets dark and frightening, when we face something so much bigger than ourselves that we can barely comprehend it, that's not the moment God abandons us. That's the moment we need him most. I've heard the evacuation orders. I've heard the sirens. And I want you to listen to me very carefully. If you need to leave, if you need to get your family to safety, you do that. God doesn't ask you to stand in the path of danger to prove your faith. That's not what faith is. But whether you stay or whether you go, I want you to remember something. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 28, Jesus tells his disciples something right before he leaves them. He says, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. Always. Not just when things are good. Not just when we understand what's happening. Always. We're living through something we never imagined we'd have to face. Something our children will ask us about for the rest of our lives. And in the middle of all this fear and chaos, Jesus is still saying, I'm here. I'm walking through this with you. You're not doing this alone. So here's what I'm asking you to do tonight. Check on your neighbor. Keep your lights on for each other. If someone needs help getting out of the city, help them. If someone needs a place to stay because they can't leave, open your door. That's how we walk through this, together, with love. Because here's the truth that Revelation is really about. It's not about beasts and trumpets and the end of everything. It's about this. No matter how dark it gets, no matter how powerless we feel, love wins. Jesus wins. And we're held by a God who knows our names and counts our tears and refuses to let us go. I can't promise you we'll all make it through this. I wish I could. But I can promise you we'll walk through it together. And I can promise you that whatever happens, God's love doesn't change. It doesn't waver. It doesn't run out. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight frightened and tired and looking for hope. We don't understand what's happening. We don't know how this ends. But we know you're here with us. Walk with the people who have to leave their homes tonight. Comfort the people who are sheltering in place. Give strength to the first responders and the doctors and everyone trying to help. And remind us, even in our darkest moments, that we are loved, that we are held, that we are yours. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
We're back on the air. It's Tuesday morning, day 8 since this started, and I'm going to be very direct with you. The entity that came ashore yesterday has moved inland. It's currently tracking northeast through what used to be the Metro Corridor. We've lost contact with 4 evacuation centers in the last 6 hours. The National Guard established a defensive perimeter at the River Valley Junction overnight. That perimeter no longer exists. I'm told the creature walked straight through concentrated artillery fire without slowing down. We're now getting reports that the smaller organisms, the ones we first saw on the beaches a week ago, they're moving with it, hundreds of them. Jack Driscoll is embedded with a rescue convoy about 12 miles from the creature's current position. Jack, are you there?
I'm here, Mark. We're on State Route 78, heading toward what's left of Riverside. The convoy stopped about 10 minutes ago because the road just ends, not blocked, ends. There's a trench across the highway that's got to be 60 feet deep. The asphalt on both sides is cracked and buckled like something the size of a city block stepped right over it. We can see smoke columns to the north. There's 7 of them, maybe 8. The emergency coordinator with us says those are residential neighborhoods, or they were. She's trying to get confirmation on how many people were still sheltering in place when it came through, but the local emergency net went dark around 4 a.m.
Jack, what about the smaller creatures? We're getting scattered reports that they're attacking evacuation routes.
That's confirmed. State police reported engagements on State Route 67 about an hour ago. They're saying the creatures are hunting in packs of 20, maybe 30 at a time. Fast. Faster than anything that size should be able to move. The convoy I'm with has orders to turn back if we encounter any.
Understood. Stay safe, Jack. We'll check back with you in a bit. Joining us now is Colonel Preston Packard, who's been consulting with the Pentagon on military response options. Colonel, we've had 24 hours to observe this creature's behavior. What can conventional forces do?
Not much, Mark. I'm going to give it to you straight because people deserve the truth. We hit it with everything short of tactical nuclear weapons last night, armor-piercing munitions, bunker busters, MOABs. The damn thing didn't even acknowledge we were shooting at it. The outer hide is deflecting rounds that should penetrate reinforced concrete. When we do manage to score a direct hit, the thermal signature shows the wound closing within minutes. We're not even slowing it down. We're just making noise.
What about air support? We've seen F-22s conducting strafing runs.
Same story. The creature emits some kind of electromagnetic pulse when aircraft get within 2,000 feet. We've lost 3 jets to avionics failure. The pilot's ejected, but we can't risk more aircraft until we understand what we're dealing with. Right now, the standing order is to track and observe. That's all we can do.
And the smaller organisms, the ones traveling with it?
Those we can kill. Standard rifle fire works if you hit center mass, but they don't stop coming. We're seeing coordinated attacks on military positions, supply convoys, anywhere there's human activity. It's like they're clearing a path.
Colonel, what's the current casualty estimate?
We don't have reliable numbers yet. Communications infrastructure in the affected zones is completely gone. Cell towers, landlines, even satellite relay stations have been destroyed. We know at least 4 hospitals were in the creature's path, 2 evacuation centers. If people didn't get out in time, we're looking at thousands.
Thousands. Colonel Packard, thank you for your time. We're going to take a very brief break. When we come back, we'll have updated evacuation zone maps and emergency shelter locations. If you're in the affected inland zones, you need to see this information. Please don't go anywhere. We're back. It's now 9:38 a.m. In the last 15 minutes, the main entity has changed course. It's no longer moving northeast. It's turned directly north toward the Highland Valley region. That's a population center of over 200,000 people. Current evacuation estimates suggest fewer than half of those residents made it out before the highways were cut off. Jack Driscoll is still with that rescue convoy. Jack, have you reached any survivors?
We found a group sheltering in a shopping center basement. 43 people. mostly families. They said they heard it pass overhead around dawn. Described it as a freight train mixed with thunder that wouldn't stop. The whole building shook. Ceiling tiles fell. One of the walls cracked straight down the middle. Mark, they didn't even see it. It passed 2 blocks away and they never got a visual. They just heard it and felt it. That's how big this thing is. You can be 2 blocks away and never see it because the buildings are in the way, and when it walks, it leaves footprints the size of houses.
Did they report any encounters with the smaller creatures?
Yes. About an hour after the main creature passed, they heard scratching on the loading dock door, metal tearing. They barricaded themselves in the freezer section and waited it out. When they finally came out, the door was shredded, claw marks in the concrete. One of the men said he counted at least 15 distinct sets of tracks.
Get them to safety, Jack, and be careful on the way back. We've just received word from FEMA that 3 additional states have been added to the federal disaster declaration. The governor has activated every available National Guard unit, but deployment is being hampered by infrastructure damage. Major highways are impassable, rail lines have been destroyed. We're being told that emergency services in the affected zone should be considered unavailable. If you're in the evacuation zone and you can leave, leave now. Take only what you can carry. Don't wait for official word. Don't wait for help. The roads that are still open won't stay that way. Move west, move south, just move. We'll be back with more updates as we get them. Stay with us.
This is an official emergency alert from the Federal Emergency Management Agency in coordination with the Department of Defense. This alert supersedes all previous evacuation advisories. Following information is current as of 0900 hours on Tuesday, day 8 of the current emergency. An expanded mandatory evacuation order is now in effect for the following regions: all areas east of Interstate 5, all areas north of Interstate 10, and all areas within a 50-mile radius of Highland Valley Metropolitan Zone. This evacuation order includes but is not limited to the following counties: Riverside, Highland, Cedar Valley, North Shore, and Lakewood. Immediate evacuation is required. Citizens are directed to proceed west or south, using only designated evacuation corridors. All northbound and eastbound routes are restricted to emergency personnel only. Civilians attempting to travel north or east will be turned back by military checkpoints. Do not deviate from designated routes. Do not stop for personal belongings. Do not return to restricted zones for any reason. Citizens are advised that secondary biological entities have been confirmed in the evacuation zone. These entities travel in groups and are attracted to movement and noise. Individuals encountering these entities are directed to seek enclosed shelter immediately. Do not engage. Do not attempt vehicle-based evasion in open areas. Remain in secure structures until the threat has passed. The primary biological mass is currently tracking north-northeast. Projected path includes direct intersection with Highland Valley metropolitan area within the next 6 to 8 hours. All remaining civilians in Highland Valley and surrounding communities must evacuate immediately using southbound corridors only. Emergency services in the affected zone are no longer operational. Medical assistance is unavailable. Self-rescue is required. This advisory will remain in effect until further notice. Updates will be broadcast at 1400 hours or when conditions change. Repeat. Mandatory evacuation is in effect for all areas north of Interstate 10 and east of Interstate 5. Proceed west or south immediately. Do not travel north or east. Emergency services are not available in restricted zones. This has been an official alert from the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
This is Mark Russell. It's Wednesday, day 9 of the coastal emergency. And I need you to understand that what I'm about to report hasn't been confirmed through official channels. We're operating on direct observation from our field teams. For the past 48 hours, the Alpha entity has continued moving northwest through the evacuation zone. Casualty estimates are, they're beyond anything I'm prepared to say on the air. What remains of the National Guard perimeter has pulled back to the inland staging areas. We're going now to Mason Weaver, who's reporting from a forward observation position approximately 8 miles from the creature's current heading. Mason, can you hear us?
Mark, I can hear you. I don't know how much longer I'll have signal. There's some kind of electromagnetic interference building up in this area. Our equipment keeps flickering. I'm on a ridge about 2 miles from the coast, and I can see the Alpha from here. It's changed direction. It stopped moving toward the evacuation corridor about 20 minutes ago, and now it's turned to face the ocean.
Turn toward the ocean? Any indication of why?
Mark, I think something's coming. The water about 3 miles offshore. It's churning. Massive displacement, bigger than when the first one surfaced. Wait, it's rising. Something is coming out of the water. Mark, there's a second one.
Mason, describe what you're seeing.
It's different from the first one. The shape is different. More, I don't know how to describe it. More like something that belongs in the ocean. Massive dorsal structures running down its spine, and it's making a sound. I can feel it in my chest from here, like standing next to a subwoofer the size of a building. The first Alpha just responded. It's roaring back. Mark, they're facing each other. This looks like a challenge.
We have Dr. Houston Brooks with us in the studio. Doctor, what are we looking at here?
Mark, if what Mason is describing is accurate, and I have no reason to doubt him, we may be witnessing something extraordinary. A second apex predator of comparable scale has just arrived to challenge the first. The bio-acoustic display Mason described, that low-frequency vocalization, in our theoretical models, that's a dominance call, an alpha assertion. These creatures don't randomly encounter each other. This new entity came here specifically to confront the first one.
But why? What would draw another one of these things here?
There's a hypothesis, and I want to stress this is speculative, that these organisms exist in a global equilibrium, a balance. When one entity rises and begins exhibiting unchecked dominance behavior, when it starts destroying everything in its path, it may trigger a response from others of its kind. Think of it like an immune response. The planet itself, or at least the macrobiological system these creatures represent, may have mechanisms for correcting imbalances. This new entity isn't here to destroy us. It's here to stop the other one.
They're moving toward each other. The new one just made landfall. It's walking past the industrial district like it isn't even there. It's not targeting the buildings. It's heading straight for the first Alpha. Oh my God, they just collided. The impact, I felt the ground shake from here. They're fighting. They're actually fighting each other.
Dr. Brooks, what does this mean for the people still in the area?
It means we're no longer combatants, Mark. We're bystanders. This fight isn't about us. It never was. We're watching a territorial dispute between apex predators that were here millions of years before our species existed. The collateral damage from a battle of this scale will be catastrophic. But if the second entity wins, if it establishes dominance, there's a possibility it will return to dormancy once the threat is neutralized. That's what these protector-class organisms do in our models. They restore balance, and then they disappear.
They're still engaged. The first one, just some kind of energy discharge. Bluish light came from its mouth. The second one took it and kept coming. Mark, this is like nothing I've ever... Signals breaking up. The electromagnetic interference is getting worse. I'm going to try to relocate to higher ground. Mark, if I lose you...
Mason, be safe. For everyone listening, we've just witnessed what appears to be a second massive organism emerging from the ocean to challenge the Alpha that's been devastating our coastline for the past week. According to Dr. Brooks, this may represent some kind of natural corrective mechanism. We don't know how this battle will end. We don't know if either creature will survive. What we know is that humanity is no longer directing this crisis. We're watching it unfold. Stay tuned to this frequency for updates, and please, if you're in the affected areas, stay away from the combat zone. This is Mark Russell with continuing coverage of the coastal emergency. It's Friday, and the situation on the ground has reached what military commanders are calling a critical inflection point. For the past 48 hours, the two Alpha entities have been engaged in continuous combat across an area spanning roughly 70 square miles. The path of destruction now extends from the original harbor breach all the way to the inland agricultural zones. Entire towns have been leveled, not by direct attack, but simply by proximity to the conflict. Joining us now is Colonel Preston Packard, Pentagon consultant on defense posture. Colonel, we're hearing reports that the military is preparing to deploy some kind of experimental technology. What can you tell us?
Mark, what I'm about to describe has been classified until approximately 1 hour ago. The decision to declassify was made at the highest levels because, frankly, we need the public to understand what we're attempting and why. For the past several years, a research division within the Department of Defense has been studying the communication patterns of large marine fauna, whales, dolphins, deep ocean species. The goal is to understand how these animals coordinate across vast distances using sound.
And this research is relevant to what's happening now.
When the first Alpha surfaced 2 weeks ago, we recorded its vocalizations, that low-frequency sound that shook buildings and could be felt for miles. Our analysts compared those recordings to our existing database and found something remarkable. The acoustic patterns follow recognizable structures, not random noise, not just aggressive roaring. These creatures are communicating. They have a language, if you want to call it that. And we think we've learned enough of it to try speaking back.
You're saying the military has built a device that can talk to these things?
Talk is a strong word. What we've developed is a bio-acoustic transmitter capable of replicating specific frequency patterns we've identified in the creature's vocalizations. The technical name is the Oceanic Research and Communication Array, but the team calls it the Orca. The theory is that by broadcasting certain synthesized frequencies, we can simulate the acoustic signatures these creatures use to navigate, to establish territory, or to signal submission. If we can get them to respond to our signal, we might be able to redirect them.
Redirect them where?
Away from population centers. The combat zone has been drifting northeast toward the urban core. If we can lure them south, toward the coastal salt flats, we can minimize civilian casualties while they continue to fight. Or, in the best-case scenario, we might be able to pacify one or both of them entirely.
What are the risks?
We don't fully understand what we're dealing with. The translations are approximations based on limited data. There's a chance the signal could be interpreted incorrectly. Instead of submission or territorial warning, we might accidentally broadcast something that reads as a challenge. If that happens, we could draw both creatures toward the Orca deployment site, which is currently positioned on the eastern ridgeline, about 3 miles from the interstate evacuation corridor.
Colonel, when does this operation begin?
It's already begun. The Orca was activated approximately 12 minutes ago. The initial broadcast cycle takes about 15 minutes to complete. We should know within the hour whether the creatures are responding.
Colonel, hold on. I'm getting word from our technical team that we're experiencing significant signal interference. Our satellite uplink is...
That's consistent with what we expected. The Orca operates on extremely low frequencies. When it's broadcasting at full power, it can disrupt electronic systems within a considerable radius. Your equipment may continue to degrade as the cycle progresses.
We're going to try to stay on the air as long as possible. Colonel, is there anything you can tell people listening right now? Anything they should be doing?
Stay away from the combat zone. If you're in the evacuation corridor, keep moving. don't stop. And if you feel a sudden change in air pressure, or if you notice the creature's changing direction, that means the orca is working.
Colonel, thank you. For everyone listening, the military has deployed an experimental acoustic device in an attempt to redirect the creatures away from populated areas. We don't know if it's working. We're experiencing significant technical difficulties and may lose broadcast capability at any moment. If we go off the air, stay tuned to emergency frequencies, follow evacuation orders, and please stay safe. This is Mark Russell. We'll be back when we...
All right, so I've been documenting anomalous seismic patterns in the Pacific for the last 4 years. Posted about Deep Earth hypothesis in 2022. Got laughed off every forum I posted to. And now we're watching two creatures the size of skyscrapers tear through the state while the military tries to talk to them with synthesized whale songs. I'm not surprised. I wish I was surprised. Today I've got someone who actually understands what we're dealing with. Dr. Tomoyuki Tanaka has been studying these organisms since the first beaching event, helped develop the classification system the military's using now. Thanks for coming on.
Happy to be here. Though I'm not sure happy is the right word for any of this.
Fair enough. So let's start with the obvious question. What are these things? Because the official line is still prehistoric creatures awakened by drilling, but that doesn't explain why they're organized into what looks like a military hierarchy.
The Deep Earth hypothesis is correct as far as it goes. These organisms evolved during a period when surface radiation levels were exponentially higher. They retreated underground when the Earth cooled and radiation declined. We woke them up. That part's true, but they're not just animals. They're an ecosystem, a functioning ecological hierarchy that we just dropped ourselves into the middle of.
Walk me through the classification. I've heard the terms Yoju, Honju, Alpha. What do those actually mean?
We're using a fortitude scale based on structural integrity and energetic output. The small ones, the dog-sized crustacean things that beached on day 2. Those are Yoju, low fortitude. They travel in swarms. Individually weak, but they hunt in coordinated packs of 20 or 30. Standard rifle fireworks if you hit center mass.
And the larger one that showed up?
Honju. Fortitude 6.8. That's the herd leader. It spawns Yoju from specialized organs in its thorax. We've confirmed it can produce new swarms continuously. That's why the numbers kept climbing even after we killed hundreds of the smaller ones. They weren't just hunting. They were being manufactured.
Manufactured. Okay. And the two big ones fighting right now?
Alphas, Fortitude 8 and above. The first one, the one that made landfall on the 7th. We're measuring it at 9.8. For context, that's planetary scale destructive capability. The second one that arrived on 9th day is registering at 9.6. These are the apex predators. Everything else in the ecosystem responds to their calls.
You're saying the Yoju and the Honju are following orders?
Not orders exactly. It's bio-acoustic dominance. The alpha broadcasts at frequencies we can barely measure. The subordinate organisms respond automatically. It's hardwired into their biology. When an alpha calls, they move. When it establishes territory, they defend it. The whole system is held together by sound.
That's why the military is trying the sonic weapon. They're trying to fake an alpha call.
Right. The Orca device. They're synthesizing frequencies to simulate dominance signals. In theory, they can redirect the creatures or pacify them. In theory.
You don't sound confident.
Because we're guessing. We've had 2 weeks to study a communication system that evolved over millions of years. We're broadcasting signals we think mean stand down or move west. But we're doing it in a language we don't actually speak. For all we know, we just told them to double down.
All right, different question. Why are the two alphas fighting? They're the same species. Why aren't they cooperating?
That's the interesting part. They're not the same species. Different morphology, different behavior patterns, different ecological roles. The first alpha is what we classify as an invasive predator. It's terraforming, breaking down infrastructure, clearing territory, reshaping the environment to suit its biology. It's not trying to coexist, it's trying to replace.
And the second one?
Protector classification. It's not attacking human structures. It went straight for the other alpha. We think it's acting as an immune response. The first alpha is the infection. The second one is the planet's white blood cell trying to kill it before it spreads.
So we're just collateral damage.
Essentially. To them, we are ants in the grass during a dogfight. They're not targeting us. We're just in the way. The protector might actually save us by eliminating the invasive alpha, or it might kill us all in the process. It doesn't care which.
Let's talk about the blood for a second. Kaiju blue. We've got reports of environmental crews in hazmat suits trying to contain spills. How bad is it?
Bad. The blood is hyperammonic. pH levels that would dissolve concrete. When it's exposed to air, it releases toxic vapor clouds that cause respiratory failure in minutes. Skin contact leads to chemical burns. Ingestion or inhalation is fatal, and it doesn't break down naturally. Areas contaminated by Kaiju blue remain uninhabitable without extensive decontamination.
Which is why conventional weapons are so risky. You breach the hide, you release the blood.
Exactly. Every time we damage one of these organisms, we're creating a toxic spill zone that kills more civilians than the creature itself.
Jesus.
It gets worse. The blue triggers mutagenic effects in local fauna. We're seeing accelerated cellular division in exposed organisms. Rats the size of dogs, insects developing exoskeletons that standard pesticides can't penetrate. The environmental damage isn't just physical destruction. We're dealing with cascading ecological collapse in the affected zones.
Here's what I don't understand. You said these things operate on nuclear metabolism, internal reactors. We hit the first alpha with MOABs, bunker busters. Everything short of tactical nukes. Nothing worked. Why?
Because conventional weapons target structural integrity. We're trying to break the armor or destroy organs. But these organisms heal faster than we can damage them. Wounds close in minutes. Severed tissue regenerates. The nuclear reactor inside them provides so much energy that their cellular repair systems operate in real time. Think of it like this. A normal animal heals over days or weeks. These things heal between heartbeats.
How is that even possible? Where's the energy coming from?
Nuclear fossilization. Over millions of years in high radiation environments. These organisms develop biological structures that can harvest and store radioactive energy. They're essentially living reactors. The dorsal plates you see on the larger ones, those are heat sinks, radiator fins to prevent meltdown. They need them because the amount of energy coursing through their systems would vaporize a normal creature instantly.
And that's why they're so massive. They need the size to dissipate the heat.
Partly. The square cube law says creatures this size shouldn't be able to exist. Their own weight should crush them. But the nuclear metabolism allows for cellular structures with tensile strength we can't replicate in any material we've ever engineered. Their bones are denser than titanium. Their hide deflects armor-piercing rounds. Their biological impossibilities operating on physics we're only starting to understand.
So what does work?
You target the core. The reactor itself. If you can get a weapon deep enough to pierce the reactor shielding, the organism will either undergo catastrophic meltdown or emergency freeze to prevent detonation. But getting that deep requires either a Class 5 entity, which we don't have, or precision weapons delivered at close range by something that can survive the fight long enough to land the shot.
We don't have that either.
No, we don't. Right now our best option is to hope the Protector wins the fight and goes back to sleep. Or we pray the Orca device actually works and we can redirect them both into the ocean. Those are the only plays we have left.
And if neither of those happens?
Then we're watching the beginning of a planetary regime change. The old apex species stepping aside for the new one. Except in this case, we're the old apex species, and there's no guarantee the new regime has any use for us at all.
Yeah, that's about what I figured. All right, I appreciate you coming on and confirming what I've been saying for 4 years. Not that it helps, but at least now we know what we're dealing with, or at least we know how much we don't know. Links to the classification documentation are in the show notes. I'll post updates as they come in. Stay safe out there, or as safe as you can be when the food chain just rearranged itself.
I was wrong about one thing. That's what I need to say before anything else tonight. I told you the creatures weren't real. I told you the whole monster narrative was cover for something else. I was wrong about that part. The creatures are real. Write it down. Bernie Hayes was wrong about the creatures. But everything I told you about the people running the response, every question I raised about who was ready and why they were ready, that I was right about. And if you've been following the last 2 weeks, you already know that what I'm about to say is going to be harder to sit with than anything I said before. Day 2. Day 2 of this crisis. A man named Dr. Houston Brooks appeared on the morning news and spent 8 minutes explaining organisms that had never appeared in any public scientific record before that morning. He didn't fumble. He didn't reach for words. He had a classification system. He had a theoretical model he called nuclear fossilization, laid out in clean, prepared sentences with supporting logic. He named his employer on air, the Monarch Research Division. That's a registered nonprofit organization that's been active for over 30 years. Their stated purpose, direct from their own filings, is the study of deep Earth biological systems and anomalous geological formations. 30 years, and nobody on that broadcast asked Dr. Brooks a single question about where that organization came from. Here's why that matters, folks. Discovery is confused. When scientists encounter something genuinely unknown, they're loud about being confused and they use the wrong words while they work toward the right ones. That's not what happened. Brooks didn't behave like a scientist encountering something new. He behaved like a scientist describing something he'd already read about. Now here's where the Meridian connection changes shape. I told you before about the DoD liability waivers. I told you about the 3 former Pentagon officials on the board. What I didn't have then was the language of the waiver itself. The liability protection covers, and I'm reading this directly, unforeseen biological displacement events. That's the phrase they used. Unforeseen biological displacement events. They wrote those words before anyone officially acknowledged these things were real. You don't write a legal carve-out for something you haven't already mapped. And while Meridian was drilling, a bill that went dead in the Senate Infrastructure Committee back in 2019 was quietly reintroduced, the Deep Earth Civilian Shelter and Relocation Act. Federal funding for underground residential infrastructure at national scale. That bill went in before the first creature surfaced. I heard that scientist on the podcast that's been circulating this week say our long-term survival as a species means moving underground. He said it like it was a new idea, but the legislation for it was already written. And now look at the coastal corridor. Property valuations at zero. Federal acquisition proceedings already underway in 3 contaminated zones. Someone needed that coastline cleared. Someone needed the public scared enough to accept legislation they'd had sitting in a drawer for years. The creatures gave them both. I've been sitting on something since last week. Someone who worked inside Monarch's intake operations during the first 4 days sent me pages from an internal assessment document, not a field report, an assessment. It describes the organisms using biological classifications and anatomical terminology that didn't appear in any public communication until just recently. The language in that document tracks almost exactly with what Brooks said on air, because they came from the same file, a file that existed before the creatures surfaced, before the drilling, before Meridian Energy had a board of directors. So here's what the sequence looks like. Monarch found these organisms, not recently, decades ago. They studied them. They built a model around what they found. And at some point, someone in that chain decided they needed a reason to use what they built. They needed a specific piece of the coastline cleared. They needed emergency legislation passed that nobody would question while 2 400-foot creatures were walking through the state. They needed the underground infrastructure spending authorized. So they licensed Meridian, handed them a set of coordinates, and let the formation break. Then a second creature shows up, goes straight for the first one like it has an address. And a president announces a last resort countermeasure that works exactly the way the Monarch model said it would. That's not a crisis unfolding. That's a sequence running on schedule. They didn't wake the creatures up by accident. They woke them up on a schedule. Monarch Research Division, registered nonprofit. Tax filings are public record. Start there. Then pull the Meridian liability waiver language and read what they wrote before any of this started. Then find the Deep Earth Shelter Act and check the date it was first introduced. Then ask yourself why a scientist with a 30-year organization and a ready-built classification system for things that didn't officially exist was on television with no hesitation and no confusion. The paper trail is there. They left it because they never believed anyone was paying close enough attention to follow it. They were wrong about that. Do your own research, people. This is Bernie Hayes. I'm going to stay with this until I figure out exactly what's going on.
Way 6HM calling any station. W6HM to anyone who can hear this. I'm broadcasting from the old water tower on Ridgeline, about 8 miles west of what used to be Riverside. Both creatures are in visual range. The smaller one, the one that came from the ocean 2 days ago, it's got the other one pinned against the ridgeline. They're tearing into each other. I can see it from here. All of it. The ground is shaking so hard I can barely stand. Every time one of them moves, the whole tower sways. There's a sound. It's like a freight train mixed with thunder that never stops. My ears are bleeding. I think my ears are bleeding. The military tried something this morning. The Orca device. Some kind of sonic weapon that was supposed to calm them down or redirect them. I heard it go off around 1000 hours. Made this low-frequency hum that made my teeth hurt. Didn't work. The creatures didn't even slow down. They just kept fighting. The bigger one. The one... It just grabbed the other one by the neck and threw it. Threw it. A creature the size of a skyscraper just picked up another creature the size of a skyscraper and threw it a quarter mile into the hillside. It landed in the industrial zone. There were factories there. Chemical plants. Storage tanks. I can see the fires from here. 3, 4, maybe 5 separate infernos. Black smoke going straight up into the sky. The whole eastern horizon is orange. The Protector, that's what they're calling the Ocean One. It's back on its feet. It's charging. I've never seen anything move that fast. Something that big shouldn't be able to move that fast. It's running on all fours and the ground is... Jesus. The ground is cracking open behind it. They just collided. The impact. I felt it through the tower, like an earthquake. Buildings 2 miles away are collapsing. I can see them coming down. The hospital, the old courthouse, just folding in on themselves from the shockwave. The Protector's got its jaws locked on the other one's throat. There's blood. I can see it from here. It's not red. It's blue. Bright blue. It's pouring out onto the ground and everything it touches is dissolving. The concrete is just... it's melting. The vapor from the blood is rising. Looks like steam. I can smell it from here. Ammonia. Something chemical. If you're downwind of this fight, get inside. Seal your windows. That vapor will kill you. The invasive alpha just broke free. It's got these plates on its back that are glowing. Bright red. Getting brighter. Heat shimmer in the air around them. The Protector is backing away. I think it knows what's coming. Oh, God. It's opening its mouth. Get down. If you can hear this, get down. Get underground. It's firing. Some kind of... it's a beam. Blue-white beam of light coming out of its mouth. It's cutting through the Protector. Cutting straight through. The heat. I can feel the heat from here. 8 miles away, and I can feel it on my face. The beam swept across the valley. Everything in its path is gone. The trees, the power lines, the highway overpass, gone. Just vaporized. There's nothing left but slag. The Protector's hurt. Bad. It's on the ground. It's trying to get up, but it can't. There's a massive wound across its torso, cauterized. The other one is moving toward it, slow, like it knows it won. Wait. The Protector. It's making a sound. Low frequency. I can feel it in my chest. The invasive alpha stopped. It's turning its head. Like it's listening. Like it's waiting for something. The dorsal plates are glowing again. It's getting ready for another shot. This is W6HM. I'm abandoning this position. The tower isn't safe anymore. If anyone is still out there, the fight is spreading. Get out. Get as far east as you can. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just...
This is Mark Russell, coming to you with breaking news. 2 days ago, when we last broadcast, the military had deployed the Bio-Acoustic device in an attempt to redirect the battling creatures. There was hope, cautious hope, that we might be able to steer them away from populated areas and let nature take its course. That hope is gone. The Orca failed, not because the technology didn't work, but because the enemy creature changed. Joining us now is Dr. San Lin, Chief of Emergency Toxicology at Regional Medical Center. Dr. Lin has been advising the military on biological countermeasures. Doctor, can you explain what happened?
Mark, what we've observed over the past 48 hours fundamentally changes everything we thought we understood about these organisms. When the Orca began broadcasting, both creatures initially responded. They paused. They seemed to be listening. Then, approximately 6 hours into the broadcast cycle, the hostile alpha stopped responding. Not gradually, completely, as if someone had flipped a switch.
What do you mean it stopped responding?
I mean, the creature adapted. We've confirmed through tissue samples collected from the engagement zone that the hostile alpha physically restructured its auditory organs. The frequency range the orca was targeting, the creature evolved past it. In hours, Mark, not generations, not years, hours.
You're telling me this thing can change its own biology on demand?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. The term is hypermutagenesis. This organism possesses the ability to rapidly manipulate its own genetic structure in response to environmental stressors. When we challenged it with acoustic interference, it simply evolved to ignore that challenge. But that's not the worst part. Once it adapted past the orca signal, it didn't just resume fighting the Protector, it changed again. It developed new offensive capabilities specifically designed to defeat its opponent.
New capabilities? Like what?
We observed the creature generate specialized glands along its forelimbs that weren't present in any of our earlier imaging. These glands appeared to secrete a highly concentrated acidic compound, far more corrosive than the standard hemolymph. When it struck the Protector, the acid ate through armor plating that had previously withstood direct artillery bombardment. Additionally, the hostile alpha appeared to develop some kind of electromagnetic pulse capability. Every time it discharged, military equipment within a half-mile radius went dark. Drones fell out of the sky. Targeting systems failed. Communications collapsed.
And the Protector, the second creature that arrived to challenge it?
Severely wounded, forced into retreat approximately 16 hours ago. Last confirmed sighting had it moving back toward the ocean, bleeding heavily from multiple breach points in its hide. We don't know if it's going to recover. We don't know if it can.
So the one thing that was actually fighting for us, the creature that seemed to be trying to restore some kind of balance, it's gone.
For now, yes. And the hostile alpha is now unchallenged. It resumed moving northwest approximately 4 hours ago. Current projections have it reaching the metropolitan evacuation staging area within 36 hours.
Dr. Lin, I have to ask the question everyone's thinking. If this creature can adapt to anything we throw at it, if it can evolve past our defenses in real time, how do we stop it?
I don't have an answer for you, Mark. What I can tell you is that the military is currently reviewing all remaining options. The president is expected to address the nation within the hour. I believe significant decisions have been made at the highest levels.
Dr. San Lin, thank you for your candor. I know none of this is easy to hear, but people deserve to know what we're facing.
They do. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry, I wish I had better news.
For those just joining us, the Orca acoustic device has failed. The hostile alpha has demonstrated the ability to rapidly mutate its biology in response to our countermeasures. The Protector creature has been severely wounded and forced into retreat. We're expecting a presidential address shortly. Please stay tuned to this channel. And if you're still in any of the affected zones, please leave now. There may not be another chance.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains are moved into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam. The book of Psalms, chapter 46, verses 1 through 3. I want to tell you who wrote it. the sons of Korah, a guild of temple musicians who spent their lives writing for people in trouble. They wrote from inside it, not from a distance. I've read this psalm from this pulpit before, on difficult nights. Tonight is not a figure of speech. When those words were first written, they reached for the worst thing the writers could imagine. Mountains moving, the sea taking everything, the ground refusing to hold. They weren't predicting anything. They were writing for people already inside the worst thing, trying to put words around a feeling that doesn't have any. Some of you know exactly what that feels like by now. Verse 10 of that same psalm, short verse, 2 words in the original Hebrew that become 10 in English. Be still and know that I am God. Other translations say cease striving. Some say rest. What all of them are pointing at is the same thing. Loosen your grip. Stop your hands. For 12 days, we've been in motion. And that's been right. Moving people out, caring for the wounded, showing up for each other in ways I've watched from this building that I'm still thinking about. None of that was the wrong thing to do. I'm not standing here to say otherwise. But something shifted yesterday. The fight moved to a place nobody can follow it. The people who've been carrying the decisions, working through the night, standing between us and what's out there, they've reached the edge of what anyone can do from the outside. And I don't think we were prepared for that, for there being an edge. We assumed if we kept moving, kept pressing, something would turn. Yesterday it didn't turn. There are people tonight with nothing left to put their hands to. The thing they've been fighting has moved past what any person can touch. And I don't think anyone told them what to do when that happens. Be still doesn't mean give up. That needs to be said plainly. It doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It doesn't mean you've decided nothing matters. What it means is harder than either of those. It means releasing the grip on something that was never yours to hold. Those things out there in the dark, whatever their nature, they were sleeping in the deep places of this earth before this city had a name, before this country did. We woke them. We can't send them back. Sitting down with that truth, really sitting with it and not running from it. That's the hard work tonight. The fight I'm asking you to do right now isn't the kind that uses your hands. The psalm doesn't say the earth stops giving way. It doesn't promise the sea gets quiet. We won't fear even though those things happen. Not afterward. Not once it's over. While it's happening. And the reason the psalm gives isn't that the disaster ends. It's that God is here. Present help. Those 2 words. Present. Here. In this room. In whatever room you're listening from tonight. There's one more thing I want to read to you from the Apostle Paul, the 8th chapter of his letter to the Romans, verses 38 and 39. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. He wrote that from a prison cell for people an empire was trying to break. He couldn't have known what we'd be standing in front of when we read it. But he put in anything else. He left room for this, for whatever this is. I can't tell you how this ends. I don't have that. What I have is this letter from a man who had every reason to stop and didn't. Anything else in all creation. Whatever is standing in the valley tonight, Paul said is covered. I'm not going to pray tonight. I think tonight we just listen. Be still and know.
We're interrupting our coverage to bring you a live address from the President of the United States. President William Stenz is speaking from an undisclosed secure location. We go now to the President.
My fellow Americans, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I've never been a sugarcoater. You know that. Everyone knows that. And tonight I have to tell you something that no president should ever have to say. We tried. We tried everything. Tanks, missiles, the sound thing, the Orca, which was very expensive, by the way, billions of dollars. And it worked for a while. It really did. But this creature, and I've never seen anything like it, it adapted. It changed itself, like something out of a horror movie. You know, I watched a lot of monster movies growing up. Godzilla, Rodan, The Blob, which scared me. I'll admit it. Great movie, though. And in those movies, the heroes always find a weakness. They find the one thing that kills the monster, and they win. Well, America, we found the weakness. Our scientists, the best in the world, and I mean that, absolute geniuses. They've identified something called a core. It's inside the creature, deep inside, and if we can get to it, if we can break it, this thing dies. No more mutations, no more adapting. Done. Now, getting to that core, that's the hard part. This creature has armor like you wouldn't believe, tougher than anything our military has ever faced. But I've authorized, and this is happening tomorrow morning, I've authorized the largest concentrated assault in American history. Every branch, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, everything we have, all focused on one objective, crack that shell and reach the core. It's going to be like the end of Independence Day, except better, because I'll be giving the speech. I have to be honest with you. We've lost people, a lot of people, good Americans, families, children. The numbers, I've seen the numbers, and they're devastating, truly devastating. And I know that nothing I say tonight brings any of them back. But here's what I also know. America doesn't give up. We didn't give up at Pearl Harbor. We didn't give up on D-Day. We didn't give up when King Kong was climbing the Empire State Building. Okay? That was a movie. But you get my point. We fight. That's what we do. Tomorrow morning, at 0800 hours, we hit this thing with everything we've got. And I believe, I truly believe, that by tomorrow night, this nightmare is over. The creature is dead, and America begins to rebuild. To the men and women in uniform who are about to execute this mission, you are the bravest people I have ever known, the absolute bravest, and your country is proud of you. I am proud of you. Go get that core. God bless our troops. God bless the victims. And God bless the United States of America. We're going to win this. Believe me.
That was President William Stenz, speaking from an undisclosed location. The key points. The military has identified a vulnerable core structure inside the hostile creature. Tomorrow morning at 0800 hours, a coordinated assault involving all branches of the armed forces will attempt to breach the creature's defenses and destroy this core. The president acknowledged significant casualties and stated his belief that victory is possible. We will be covering the assault live tomorrow morning. Please stay tuned to this channel for continuing coverage.
This is an official emergency alert from the Advanced Preparedness and Emergency Execution Agency. This alert is valid for all jurisdictions within a 65-mile radius of the designated biological anomaly zone. A military operations advisory has been issued for the above areas, effective immediately. United States Armed Forces will commence high-yield ordnance deployment operations at 0600 hours. The objective of these operations is penetration of hardened biological structures using experimental deep strike munitions. Civilian presence within the operational theater is prohibited. All individuals remaining within the 65-mile advisory zone are directed to seek underground shelter immediately. Above-ground structures will not provide adequate protection from anticipated atmospheric pressure events and thermal radiation. Basements, subway systems, underground parking facilities, and reinforced bunkers are designated as acceptable shelter locations. Individuals without access to underground shelter are directed to evacuate the advisory zone before 0600 hours. Emergency services will not be available during the operational window. Medical assistance, fire suppression, and law enforcement response are suspended within the advisory zone until operations conclude or further notice is issued. Self-rescue protocols are in effect. Individuals requiring medical intervention must relocate outside the 65-mile perimeter before 0600 hours. Duration of military operations is estimated at 12 to 18 hours. This advisory will remain active until operations conclude or until revised guidance is issued. Updates will be broadcast on this frequency at 4-hour intervals or when operational status changes. Repeat, all individuals within the 65-mile advisory zone are directed to seek underground shelter before 0600 hours. Emergency services are suspended. Self-rescue protocols are in effect. Above-ground structures will not provide adequate protection. This has been an official alert from the Advanced Preparedness and Emergency Execution Agency.
This is Mark Russell with live coverage of Operation Harpoon. It's Monday, day 14, 08:15 hours. The assault began 15 minutes ago. Every branch of the military is engaged. We have Colonel Preston Packard with us to explain the tactical approach, and Jack Driscoll is reporting from a forward observation post 4 miles from the engagement zone. Colonel, walk us through what's happening out there.
Mark, this is a coordinated penetration assault. The objective is singular. Breach the creature's dermal plating and reach the central organ we've designated as the core. Based on analysis of tissue samples and thermal imaging, the core sits 40 meters beneath the surface of the creature's chest cavity. The core is the creature's primary energy source. Think of it as a combination of a heart and a nuclear reactor. Everything the creature does, its movement, its regeneration, its ability to adapt, all of it is sustained by this organ. If we can penetrate the biological shielding around the core and destroy it, the creature dies. Permanently.
Jack, what are you seeing from your position?
Mark, I've covered wars. I've covered disasters. I've never seen anything like this. The sky is full of aircraft, F-22s, B-2 bombers, gunships, everything flying in formation toward a single target. The noise is constant. It's like standing next to a freight train that never stops. On the ground, I can see armor columns moving into position, tanks, mobile artillery, and something I've never seen before. There are these massive vehicles. Colonel Packard can probably explain them better than I can, but they look like drilling platforms on treads.
Those are MOLE units, Mark. Mobile Ordnance Lancing Emplacements. Experimental technology that was rushed into production over the past week. They're designed to fire concentrated plasma lances capable of cutting through reinforced bunkers. We're hoping they can breach the creature's hide where conventional explosives have failed.
And the creature, how is it responding?
It's fighting back, Mark. Hard. That electromagnetic pulse we heard about, it's been discharging constantly. I've seen at least 3 aircraft drop out of the sky. And it's using that acid spray against the ground units. 2 of the armor columns are already burning. But they're not stopping. They keep coming. Wave after wave. It's like the military has decided this is the end. One way or another, either the creature dies today, or we all do.
The strategy is overwhelming force concentrated on a single breach point. We've identified a section of the creature's chest plating that appears slightly thinner than the rest. Thermal scans suggest the core may be closer to the surface there. Every asset we have is focused on that spot.
Jack, any sign that we're making progress?
There's something happening. The mole units just fired. All of them at once. I can see. There's smoke. A lot of smoke. And the creature it's staggering. Mark, I think they hit something. The creature's going down. It's not falling, but it's dropping to one knee. I can see blue fluid, a lot of it, pouring from the chest area. They breached it. They actually breached it.
The next phase is critical. Ground teams are moving in with specialized warheads designed to penetrate the secondary biological shielding around the core. If they can deliver those payloads into the breach before the creature regenerates...
Something's happening. The creature it's glowing from the inside. The chest wound is glowing orange, like there's fire inside it. And the temperature, even from here, I can feel the heat increasing.
That's the core reacting. Our thermal models predicted this. When the core is exposed to external trauma, it may go critical. The energy output would be significant.
Significant how, Colonel?
If the core destabilizes completely, the resulting energy release could be comparable to a small nuclear detonation. That's why we need to neutralize it, not just damage it.
The ground teams have stopped. They're pulling back. The glow is getting brighter. And the creature, it's not moving anymore. It's just kneeling there. Chest wound exposed, light pouring out of it.
Colonel, did we do it? Is it dying?
We didn't shatter the core. We damaged it. The creature is grounded, immobilized. But the readings we're getting suggest the core is still intact. What we've done is wounded it badly enough that it can't move. But if that core goes critical while we're standing next to it...
They're clearing the area. All units are falling back. The creature is it's frozen there, glowing, like a bomb waiting to go off.
So we've stopped it, but we haven't killed it. And if we can't stabilize the situation, we might lose the entire region to what amounts to a nuclear meltdown.
That's a situation, Mark. We've traded one catastrophe for another. The creature is down, but it's now a ticking bomb. High Command is convening an emergency session to determine next steps.
We'll continue to monitor this situation and bring you updates as they develop. For now, the creature appears to be immobilized, but its internal reactor is potentially unstable. All personnel in the engagement zone are evacuating. This is Mark Russell. Please stay with us. This is Mark Russell with continuing coverage. It's Monday, day 14, approximately 2 p.m. The creature remains immobilized at the center of the engagement zone, its internal reactor continuing to pulse with unstable energy. In the past 6 hours, a massive logistical operation has been assembled in the surrounding area. We have Mason Weaver reporting from a position approximately 2 miles from the creature. Mason, what are you seeing?
Mark, I've never seen anything like this. They've brought in construction equipment from across the country, industrial cranes, tanker trucks, pumping rigs, all converging on a single point. It looks like they're building something around the creature.
Do we have any information on what they're planning?
I've been talking to some of the engineers on site. They're calling it the Yashiori strategy. Apparently it's named after some Japanese mythology, but the science behind it is, well, it's either brilliant or insane. The creature's internal reactor is overheating because we damaged it. Normally, the thing uses its circulatory system, all that toxic blue blood, to transfer heat away from the core. It's how it keeps itself from melting down.
So the plan is to disrupt that cooling process.
Exactly. They've synthesized millions of gallons of a specialized blood coagulant. The idea is to pump it directly into the creature's system through the wound we opened in its chest. Once the coagulant enters the bloodstream, it should cause rapid solidification. The circulatory system stops moving, the cooling process fails, and when that happens, the creature's own biology kicks in with an emergency response. It freezes itself, self-preservation through suspended animation.
Freezes itself. You're saying the creature will essentially shut down to prevent a meltdown.
That's the theory. The engineers are saying these organisms have biological fail-safes built into their genetics. If the core gets too hot and the cooling system fails, the creature enters a state of emergency hibernation. Every system shuts down, the whole body goes solid.
And they're certain this will work?
Nobody's certain of anything, Mark. This is based on tissue analysis and theoretical models, but it's the only option we have left. Either this works, or the core goes critical and we lose everything within a 20-mile radius. They're starting the injection now. I can see the cranes moving into position around the creature's head. They've got these massive hoses, industrial-scale pumping equipment, all aimed at the oral cavity and the chest wound.
Mason, describe what you're seeing.
The pumps are active. I can see a white substance, almost like liquid concrete, flowing through the hoses and into the creature, thousands of gallons per minute. It's disappearing inside the wound. The creature is reacting. It's twitching. The glow from inside its chest is flickering like a light bulb about to burn out. And the temperature, even from here, I can feel it dropping. The air is getting colder.
Is it working?
Something is happening. The creature's skin is changing color. It was dark, almost black, but now there's this grayish tint spreading from the chest wound outward, like frost forming on a window. The glow is fading. The pulsing has stopped. And the creature, Mark, it's not moving at all now. Not even the small twitches. It's completely still.
Mason, are you saying the creature is frozen?
I'm saying it looks like a statue. The gray coloration has spread across the entire body, the limbs, the head, everything. It's like someone poured concrete over the whole thing. There's no movement, no glow, no sound. The engineers are cheering. I can hear them from here. The pumps are shutting down. Military personnel are approaching the creature on foot very carefully. They're getting closer, and Mark, I think it's over. I think we did it.
Mason, I need to be clear about this. Is the creature dead?
I don't think so. I'm hearing the word petrified. The engineers are saying it's in suspended animation, not terminated. The core is intact but dormant. The creature is essentially frozen in place, unable to move, unable to regenerate, but theoretically still alive somewhere deep inside.
So it could wake up?
That's what they're saying, Mark. Under the right conditions, if the core was somehow reactivated, this thing could theoretically return, but for now, for today, it's stopped. The nightmare is frozen in place.
For everyone listening, the Yashiori strategy appears to have succeeded. The hostile alpha has been neutralized through forced biological suspension. The creature stands petrified at the center of the engagement zone, no longer a threat, at least for now. This is not the victory any of us wanted. We didn't kill it. We stopped it. But after 14 days of devastation, after everything we've lost, all take stopped. We'll bring you more updates as the situation develops. This is Mark Russell. We're going live now to the White House, where the president is scheduled to address the nation following the successful deployment of the Yashiori protocol. The operation, which concluded approximately 3 hours ago, resulted in the complete immobilization of the hostile Alpha-class entity. The creature remains in a state of induced petrification in what was formerly Highland Valley. Here's the president.
My fellow Americans, we did it. We actually did it. And I've got to tell you, nobody thought it was possible. Nobody. The experts, the scientists, the talking heads on television, they all said it couldn't be done. But we did it anyway, because that's what we do. That's what America does. You remember what I told you a few days ago? I said it was going to be like the end of Independence Day, except better, because I'd be giving the speech. Well, here we are. And let me tell you something. This is better than any movie. This is real. This actually happened. Roland Emmerich couldn't write this if he tried. And I've met Roland. Terrific guy. But this is the real deal. Now, I want to talk about what happened today. The Yashiori Protocol. Beautiful name, by the way. We took a creature, a monster the size of a skyscraper, something that destroyed entire cities, and we froze it solid. Just turned it into a statue. Like Medusa, except we're the ones with the power. Incredible. The biggest, most successful operation in human history, period. And I've got to say, the previous administration, they left us completely unprepared for this. Completely. No plans, no protocols, nothing. They spent 8 years talking about climate change, biodiversity, all this stuff, and when an actual biological threat shows up, nothing. We had to build this from scratch, but we did it because we had the best people, the smartest people, and frankly, the best leadership. You know, they said we couldn't win. The media, the so-called experts, they said this thing was unstoppable. They said we should evacuate the entire western seaboard, abandon our cities, just give up and run. Well, we didn't run. We don't run. We're Americans. We fight. And when we fight, we win. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you it was easy. It wasn't. We lost people, good people, brave people, scientists, engineers, military personnel who ran toward danger when everyone else was running away. Heroes, real heroes, not the kind in movies, but the kind who actually showed up and did the work. And we're going to honor them. Believe me, we're going to honor them. But here's the thing, and this is important. We survived. We're still here. That creature, that monster that came out of the ocean to destroy us, it's frozen. It's done. We're not. We're rebuilding. We're recovering. And we're going to come back stronger than ever before. That's a promise. You know what they said in that movie? They said, "We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight." Well, guess what? We didn't. We fought. We won. And tonight, right now, we get to celebrate. Not because some alien spaceship blew up, but because American ingenuity, American courage, and American determination took down something that everyone said was impossible to stop. This is our Independence Day, our real one, the day we proved that nothing, and I mean nothing, can defeat the United States of America when we work together. Not terrorists, not economic collapse, not pandemics, and definitely not some oversized lizard from the bottom of the ocean. We're America. We win. That's what we do. So tonight, I want you to go home, hug your families, call your friends, and remember this day. Remember that we faced something unimaginable, and we didn't blink. We stood our ground. We fought back, and we won. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
The president speaking from the White House. Key points from the address. The Yashiori Protocol has successfully immobilized the hostile entity. Operations concluded 3 hours ago. The president acknowledged significant casualties among scientific and military personnel involved in the operation and announced that rebuilding efforts will begin immediately in affected regions. No specific timeline was given for when contaminated areas might be declared safe for civilian return, and no mention was made of the long-term stability of the petrified entity. We'll continue to bring you updates as they become available. Good evening. I'm Mark Russell. Tonight we're marking 6 months since the end of the emergency that reshaped our coastline, our country, and our understanding of the world we live in. This is a special edition of Coastal News Tonight. We're broadcasting from our rebuilt studio at the Coastal News Center, less than 20 miles from where this all started. For the first time in half a year, the lights are back on, the roads are open, and most of us are doing what people do, getting back to work. Joining me tonight is Dr. Houston Brooks, who served as lead scientific advisor during the crisis. He's now heading the research division of the Global Emergence Response Commission. Dr. Brooks, welcome back.
Thanks, Mark. Good to see this place standing again.
Let's start with the numbers, because I think after 6 months, people deserve to hear them plainly.
The confirmed death toll from the 14-day event stands at 47,612. Another 91,000 were injured. Roughly 30% of those are Kaiju blue exposure cases. Respiratory damage, chemical burns, long-term organ failure. We're still seeing new cases walk into hospitals today.
And the property damage.
17 cities sustained direct structural damage from the hostile Alpha. 3 of those are classified as total losses. The contamination footprint from Kaiju Blue covers about 430 square miles. Cleanup crews have neutralized maybe 60% of that using anti-Kaiju Blue smoke. The remaining zones won't be safe for years.
I want to talk about the creatures. During the crisis, we were tracking the hostile Alpha, the Protector, the Honju, those swarms of smaller organisms. Where did they all go?
The Yoju swarms collapsed within 72 hours of the Alpha's neutralization. Once that dominant bio-acoustic signal stopped, the swarm organisms lost all coordination. They scattered, stopped feeding, and most of them were dead within days. Military teams swept the remaining stragglers over the next 2 weeks. The Honju was a different story. Without the Alpha signal, it stopped spawning new Yoju. It turned toward the coast, almost like it was trying to return to the ocean. A naval strike force intercepted it at the harbor. It took 3 days of concentrated bombardment to bring it down.
And the Protector, the second Alpha that came from the ocean to fight the hostile one.
Tracking data puts it somewhere in the Abyssal zone, miles below the surface. It was in bad shape when it retreated. Multiple breach wounds. Heavy blood loss, but the energy signatures we're reading suggest it's alive, dormant, maybe healing. We can't say for certain.
That leaves the one everyone can see from the highway.
390 feet of frozen biological matter, standing in the center of what used to be the engagement zone. The Yashiori coagulant did its job. The creature's cooling system failed, and its biology triggered an emergency self-freeze to prevent a meltdown. It hasn't moved in 6 months, but the core is still active. Low-level energy readings, nothing that says it's waking up, but enough to confirm the thing standing out there isn't a statue. It's a sleeping reactor. We're watching it around the clock.
People drive past it on the way to work now. There's a viewing platform off the interstate. I saw families taking photographs last weekend.
I've seen that too. Part of me gets it. It's the strangest thing most people will ever see. But I wish they understood what they're standing next to. That's not a tourist attraction. That's a dormant weapon with a nuclear core.
Doctor, I have to ask about the drilling. Meridian Energy punched into a geological formation they didn't understand, and that's what started all of this. What's happened with them?
Meridian's been shut down. Their executives are facing criminal charges. But there are 14 other deep-sea drilling operations active around the world right now. The moratorium Congress passed only covers domestic waters. International sites, especially in the South Pacific and the Indian Ocean, are running full speed. And here's what keeps me up at night, Mark. The geological layer Meridian hit, the one that held these organisms, isn't unique to our coastline. Our surveys have identified similar formations at 9 separate locations around the globe. 9 places where something could be sitting in exactly the same kind of dormancy.
Dr. Houston Brooks, thank you for being here tonight. I know these aren't easy conversations.
They're not. But people need to hear them.
For everyone listening, this has been our 6-month retrospective on the Emergence. The cleanup continues, the rebuilding continues, and the creature still stands where the coagulant froze it. Quiet for now. Our offices reopened last month. The schools are back. Traffic on the 405 is terrible again, which might be the most normal thing I've reported in half a year. Life goes on, but somewhere out in the Pacific, miles below the surface, the Protector is still breathing. And somewhere on the other side of the world, drill bits are pushing deeper into formations we don't understand. This is Mark Russell. We'll see you tomorrow night.
And so we reach the end of our little story, though end is perhaps too generous a word. The creature still stands, frozen but not dead. The survivors still dig deeper and deeper into the earth, and somewhere beneath the waves, the ancient guardians wait. I hope you found our broadcast informative, perhaps even unsettling. Good horror should unsettle, should leave you glancing over your shoulder, listening for sounds in the deep. The truly frightening element, of course, is how little we needed to embellish. The ocean is deep, the earth is old, and humanity's tenure upon the surface has been, by any reasonable geological measure, rather brief. We like to believe we're in control, that our buildings scrape the sky, that our machines pierce the deep, that our dominion extends to every corner of this fragile blue sphere. But perhaps, every now and then, it's worth remembering that we share this world with things far older and far larger than ourselves. Sleep well tonight, and do try not to think about what might be stirring miles beneath your feet. Until next time, this has been your host. Good night.